You're a position to say, believe what you want, just don't force your rules onto us. Well, I've demonstrated right now that you are willing to use force to enforce your rules if people don't agree with them.
Once again, Jimbob, as I explained earlier quite succinctly, force is a last resort. If you are going to go against the rules and try and hurt other people or do things that are a problem within a secular society, as a last resort to protect that secular humanism society, force will be used. But that's not forcing their beliefs on you. That is the law of the land and you meeting the consequences for breaking those laws. You can believe what you want. That's not a problem or a crime.
So,
unlike Christianity, however, well, let me just point out there that within Christianity, thinking what you like is a crime. And it has been throughout history. It has resulted in people getting murdered. It has resulted in people getting stoned to death and more, and horrible things. Within Christianity, thinking what you want is literally a criminal act that can result in death.
Craig McNeil is back to lose in yet another debate of secular humanism against Christianity. If you'll recall, the last time I covered Craig was when he debated Andrew Wilson on the very same topic and got absolutely destroyed. But who knows? Maybe things will go differently this time for Craig. Let's see how a secular humanist Craig does against the Christian Jimbob.
That's why Christianity would be better for an ethical foundation. Because I didn't actually in your intro hear any reason why it would be. Could you just
sure.
Why?
Sure, yeah. In my intro, I mentioned that you don't have a standard for better. So if your determination for better is merely preferences, then you don't even agree with other secular humanists of what better is. So I'm actually doing an undercutting sweep here, is that there are two potential secular humanist views. One can take a force wins approach completely, absent Christianity. It just says force wins, we're going to dominate, and we're going to use force to implement our views, like Stalin did, right? Completely secular, and by his metric, better for him. So if that's the case, how could you possibly argue against someone else's view of what better is if better is defined by their preferences?
Well, first off there, Stalin wasn't a secularist. He was an authoritarian.
He was godless.
That doesn't mean that he's secular. That doesn't mean that the society he was part of, it was a secular humanist. He was an authoritarian, which is kind of against what secular humanism talks about.
Why can't seculars be authoritarian?
Because it's about empathy and making the world better for each other. Now, force...
Determine that.
If you could please not interrupt me whilst I'm trying to get a thought out, I'd very much appreciate it, Jimbob. That would be appreciated. I'll let you know when I've finished the thought instead of you interrupting me. Thank you. So secular humanism prefers voluntary cooperation over coercion. When people understand the reasoning behind rules and see the benefit to society, they're more likely to follow them willingly. For an example, public health campaigns are based on education, like promoting vaccines. They're preferable to mandates unless the situation becomes critical, like a pandemic. But authoritarian rule isn't secular. Using force to impose ideology or suppress dissident violates the principles of freedom and autonomy, which is kind of what secular humanism is about. So when you bring up people like Stalin, wait, let me finish my thought. When you bring up people like Stalin, that isn't a secular humanist. That is an authoritarian. Yeah, he doesn't believe in God, but that he doesn't hold the values secular humanists do.
Okay, so the definition of secular is denoting attitudes, activities, and other things that have no religious or spiritual basis.
Yes, but that's not what the definition of secular humanism is.
I get it, but humanism would be a subcategory of secularism. So I'm asking you, how does a secular humanist argue against Stalin being a secularist, right? He just doesn't agree with your preferences. So if you read the Secular Humanist Manifesto, Who determines that those are the objective standard for your rules and regulations and how you ought to live? Couldn't that change based on preferences?
Well, once again, I do need to address your point there. That's a bit of a straw man. Stalin was not a secular humanist. He may have been secular, but he was definitely not a humanist. He was an authoritarian that wanted to rule by coercing and force and power. That is not what secular humanism is. I feel, Jimbob, that you are you're correlating secular humanists with secular being not believing in God, whereas they're not the same thing. Just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean that you are a secular humanist. Secular humanists don't believe in authoritarian rules.
I understand.
This is such like a childlike, immature view of what it means to be a secular humanist. Like when I see these secular humanists debate, it's always like when we bring up, like, say, like someone like Stalin who is secular, they'll say, well, he wasn't a secular humanist. Why? Because he was really mean. And see, to be a secular humanist, it's that you don't believe in God and that you're nice and empathetic. They don't realize that since there's no moral standard or foundation for secular humanism, like Craig brought up, like, oh, well, if we just explain to people the rules, we would have to mandate a vaccine for the good of society. Yeah, well, what if you explain to people the rules and why the rules are there and they still don't want to follow the rules? Then in your secular humanist society, what would you do then? Would you just be like, okay, fair enough? Or would you have to use force to enforce your secular humanist rules? Like, the reality is you would have to use some kind of force to enforce the whatever rules or laws in the secular humanist utopia that
you don't believe in. I'm asking you, who's the ultimate authority in determining what humanism is, and could it change based on preferences?
Yeah. As I explained in my intro, secular humanism adapts as society changes to make sure that everyone is included and happy and looked after, that everyone's needs are met, that no one is chastised because of the things that they believe or the things that they, that their race or their gender or their sexual orientation. Secular humanism isn't what you seem to think it is. Secular humanism is simply about allowing humans to thrive by letting empathy and reason be the thing that allows that to happen.
Craig, I understand.
Please don't by saying Craig. So let me finish my point and then you can talk. Thank you.
Okay, Craig. So I understand what you're saying secular humanism is. I'm saying, is there any normative authority for keeping those principles, or could they change?
I've already answered that. I don't know why you didn't listen. I said, as in my intro, secular humanism adapts to society as society evolves.
So, so hold on. If society evolves to reject your platitudes of empathy and inclusivity, and it calls it secular humanism, that's what I'm asking you. You're basically saying secular humanism is this thing until it's not. I'm asking you, from your perspective, what maintains that it stays that thing and doesn't change? You just basically ended your own debate by saying it could change, that secular humanism's platitudes about inclusivity and humaneness could actually change with the times if society suddenly says, no, we don't really do that anymore.
No, again, that's a bit of a straw man of what secular humanism is. You can't get away from the fact that secular humanism is based in empathy, reason, and everyone being included.
Okay, and why ought we follow that?
Jimbob, please, I would really appreciate it if you didn't keep interrupting.
This is a back and forth.
I was going to say, just be fair,
but Jimbob,
there is room for like injection, and I will be fair that Jimbob is usually just throwing something quick in there, which is generally conductive to the conversation. But I understand that you want to have a second to get a thought out, so let's make a little space. But let's try to allow for those little interjections, just to allow the context. That's hopefully.
But I would rather that I'm allowed to get a thought out before you.
That's Craig's catchphrase. It's, would you not interrupt me? I would like to get a thought out, and you keep interrupting me. He said that a lot in the Andrew Wilson debate, and he's saying it a lot here. It's like he goes on these long-winded tirades, and then as soon as you interject, it's like, could you not interrupt me?
Interject something, otherwise that gets in the way of my thought. So yeah, I understand interjection, but let me finish a thought before you interject.
Of course, I know I'm interjecting now, but go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. Right, sorry, could you clarify your question again, Jimbob?
Yes. if I grant you what you deem is secular humanism right now, being empathetic, kind, inclusivity, humane, I'm asking you, what is or what or who is the normative authority that says that ought to maintain, or that can't change?
The manifesto of secular humanism, it explains how it can adapt. Just because humanity and society can evolve doesn't mean that we want to get away from the the empathy and the reason and the looking after everyone. What we mean by when society evolves is, for instance, same-sex marriage becoming a thing when it wasn't before, LGBTQIA+, and including them in society when that wasn't such a big thing before. Secular humanism is about, as society advances, allowing that empathy and reason and good for all to advance and adapt. You're never going to get away from empathy and reason and human society thriving being a foundation of what secular humanism is. It can just incorporate new things as it goes.
I understand. It sounds like you're saying the manifesto, which was arbitrarily defined at some point, says be good, be empathetic, be humane, right? And I'm asking, what ultimately keeps that in place? And is it possible for a secular humanist to craft a new paradigm that's contradictory to that one?
If they didn't include empathy and reason and things like that, then they wouldn't be a secular humanist. They would be something else, like an authoritarian or a dictator.
Okay, and
you are. Wait, let me finish my point. You are trying to say that, secular humanism can just completely and utterly change, whereas that's not the position that I hold. And as I explained in my intro, and as I have said to you, the foundations of secular humanism aren't going to go away. But what can adapt within secular humanism is the inclusivity and the new things that society brings.
Okay,
but
so
we reject things like violence and killing and murder and things like that, no matter what.
What these secular humanists don't understand, they just think that we just know what's good and the right thing to do at all times, and it's like we don't. If doing the right thing is subjective, So for instance, people think it's okay to just, specifically liberals or people with Trump derangement syndrome think it's okay to discriminate against Trump supporters. Trump supporters who are just minding their own business, not doing anything wrong. But in these libtards' minds, these Trump deranged syndrome sufferers' minds, they think they're doing the right thing. Why do they think they're doing the right thing? Because they think MAGA people are bad. And so therefore, it is okay to treat them in a certain way because the MAGA people are bad and we must do whatever we need to do in order to protect ourselves from these very bad racist bigots, transphobes, what have you, people. But is that showing empathy toward MAGA supporters? Are you taking your time to see where the MAGA supporters are coming from and why the MAGA supporters believe the things that they do? I mean, I don't think so. That's not very empathetic, is it? So in your secular humanist world, if someone were to come and say, hey, we should terminate all the MAGA supporters and alive all of them, because after all, they're terrible, they're evil, they're bad for our society. Under your human secularist worldview, who says that is the wrong thing to do?
We gotta make some space, so go ahead there, Bob.
Okay, I'm wondering if when you say inclusivity, how did you determine who's excluded from the secular manifesto?
I didn't say anyone's excluded. We said everyone is included.
Okay, so why doesn't it include people who want to use force to deploy their own system of ethics?
Well, they wouldn't be a secular humanist. They would be against what secular humanism is
it's
about.
not inclusive.
Now, here's the thing. You can't...
It's inclusive, but it's not inclusive.
For tolerance to exist, for the ability to be tolerant, you have to not tolerate the intolerant. Okay? And that's just kind of a basic for life. We allowed Nazism to expand because we tolerated the intolerant. Secular humanism is always going to be for empathy and inclusion. But if people that are trying to say, well, we don't believe in that, we don't want that, and we're going to force it and be nasty, then they're not a secular humanist. They're going against what secular humanism is. We're not going to include somebody that is trying to destroy everybody else, because that gets rid of tolerance in total.
Okay.
So that already flies in the whole face of your whole, well, we're going to be inclusive and tolerant. Because if we're going to be intolerant to the intolerant, well, that also makes you intolerant. So one, what is being intolerant in your eyes? You have to establish that. What does it mean to be intolerant in your secular humanist utopia? And two, how do you deal with the intolerant? So if there are people who just want to be nasty that are in your utopia, how will you enforce your secular humanist worldview? You would have to use force.
You know you're including them or excluding them then.
Well, we would say, no, we don't want you coming here with your violence and authoritarian rules. This is the way that we like to have society, and we reject what you are saying with your authoritarian nonsense. Secular humanism is going to change. It's about empathy and reason, and you're not getting away from this.
Okay, so would you use force to keep other people you don't agree with out?
Secular humanism uses force as a last resort.
No, I'm saying specifically.
But let me clarify my point. We would start with trying to get a decent, respectful dialogue about what is going on. Why are you being intolerant? What is your problems here, etc., etc., etc. If it came to it, to keep society happy and healthy, yes, force would be used to stop those people that are trying to force their ways onto you, but only to protect everybody else. And it is, again, within secular humanism, always a last resort.
Okay, cool. So in your system, you do use authoritarianism to keep other people out of your society who don't agree with your ethical norms, right?
No, we don't use authoritarianism. We use force as a last resort.
That's authoritarian. That is authority, though.
No, force as a last resort.
It is authority, though.
Force as a last. Force as a last.
I don't care if it's the first or the last. The point is, you'll use authority.
Sentence there, Jimbob. So, force as a last resort, as a protective measure. No, we're not going to allow you to attack us and destroy us and ruin our secular humanism. We will use force to defend that. We're not going to go and attack you. We will defend.
Let me ask you, if a Christian nation exists and they want to keep out secularists, you're okay them keeping them out using force, right?
Why would Christianity want to keep
I didn't ask why. No, I didn't ask why Christianity would want something.
It's not a thing to actually say one or the other, because you kind of
big big
Bob, Jimbob, if
massive reversal dunk under the legs dunk.
Jimbob, you want to let me talk and explain why you have just
answer the question.
Okay, so you just, Jimbo, you're just going to keep interrupting me. Is that what's going to happen here?
All right, let's just
answer the question.
Because there's a lot of people talking right now. I just want to let Jimbob clarify the question, and then let's give Craig some space to answer.
I'm trying to answer the question.
No, let me ask it again.
Let me ask it again because the audience may not have heard. There's a lot of over chat. Yeah. So let's let Jimbob ask the question. Then I just ask kindly to let Craig answer that question, and then you can clarify any thoughts that pop up halfway through. Especially if you think he's hanging himself. Like I say, it's better to let him talk if that's how you feel he's doing. So go ahead there, Jimbob. I'll let you clarify.
The question is, if there's a nation that's predominantly or wholly Christian, can they use force from your secular paradigm? Can they use force to keep secularists out of their Christian nation? Yes or no?
That's up to them.
Oh, yes?
But that's up to them. If Christians want to do that, then that's up to them. If they don't want secular humanists to go there, then that's their right. But you are equating one thing that is not the same as the other, and this is why you've just dug yourself. The same exact thing. No, see, once again, Jimbo, I'm trying to talk, and you just keep interjecting. This is a very pathetic and childish way to engage in a debate by just over talking constantly with someone. I've been trying to be nice and respectful with you, so I'm going to ask you politely if you could please take a breath and calm down and stop interrupting me when I'm trying to get a sentence out. Thank you very much. I'm going to now explain why you dug yourself a massive hole, because you are not equating the right things to each other. Secular humanism wouldn't stop Christianity coming in. We allow you to believe whatever religion you want. We would only use force to defend ourselves against someone trying to destroy us. That is not the same as a Christian nation going, you can't come here and we'll kill you if you try to. That's an entirely different thing. And what you've done there is dug yourself a hole by showing how Christianity doesn't care about society as a whole, only keeping Christianity as it is, where secular humanism does the exact opposite and will allow Christianity to be part of their society and believe what they want because it is about inclusivity. Force will only be used to defend ourselves. Thank you for digging yourself a massive hole there, explaining how Christianity is not good for society.
Well, we haven't determined what's good or not. You just don't like Christianity having a stronghold in society. So I'll ask a different way. If a bunch of Christians move into a secular society, and by population, by increased population, by multiplying, and by taking seats in office, do you have any problem with them taking over the government and informing law based on majority?
Oh, absolutely. Religion should never be Yeah, I'm about to explain, Jimbob. Once again, when I'm in the middle of a sentence, I got three.
Jimbob didn't even interrupt. He asked him a question, and then we're waiting for him to answer, and he's like, "Oh, well, once again, you're interrupting me." No one is interrupting you, dude. And by the way, Craig has done most of the talking so far in this debate.
There's a lag, dude. There's an audio lag.
There's
okay?
an echo. Let's just
take it easy, little guy. Take it easy.
Yeah, but, Jimbob, you need to be calm. And when you ask me a question, allow me to respond without interjecting, okay? You ask a question, let the person
All right,
respond.
to be fair, that he wasn't talking. It was just an echo that was repeating what he was saying. So he was giving you the space, to be fair. But like I say, let's try to give each other, like I say, a little bit of space.
You mean to ask the question again?
Yeah, please do ask the question again, and then make sure you're quiet afterwards.
Thank you. So if a bunch of Christians go to a secular society and they make a lot of babies, and in 3 generations, they take up such a large portion of the population that they start taking seats of office, crafting law to reflect their ethical norms, what would be wrong with that?
That goes against what secular humanism is. Secular humanism has a complete separation of state and religion. So even if a Christian person came into office, then they don't get to craft laws that are based on their religion, because that's not how secular humanism works. That would be trying to force their way upon another, and secular humanism just wouldn't accept that.
Would they use force to stop it then? If you say they wouldn't accept it.
They would just reject it.
Sorry. No, but rejecting it.
Those laws we're going to have because we're a secular humanist society which separates church and state. So any laws that are enforced by religion are just not going to happen.
Okay, so, well, no, they could very well happen with the numbers. So I'm asking, you're saying you'd reject it, but I'm asking you, would you use force to stop it?
If they tried to force it upon us, then force to defend ourselves, absolutely. Because again, force is a last resort to defend within secular humanism. Well, what you're doing is trying to say, well, we could just turn up and take office and then change all the laws to make them religious-based. Well, then that's no longer a secular humanist society. That is now a religious society, because secular humanism has a separation of church and state. Now, I'm simply going to ask you the question, Jimbob, why is Christianity a better foundation for ethics when Christianity bases its ethics on a fear of hell or a reward of heaven?
I don't take that approach to Christianity, so that would be a straw man. But I understand mostly the people you argue against, I would be arguing against as well, Craig. So I give you some grace there. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say, again, you have no standard for better. You just have a collective set of preferences. So you don't even have you have no position to even say the word better, because your term for better reduces to, do I like pizza or not? So I think it's better, from my perspective, because of our virtues, that we actually have duties. You have no duties. You have an old religious, by the way, the Secular Humanist Manifesto was explicitly called a counter-religious document. And so you don't have any duties, right? These things can change, whereas a Christian foundation doesn't change. You just don't like some of the things. But to say that the duty to procreate, the duty to maintain society and decency and order, that's a thing that doesn't change with Christianity over 2,000 years. And so given that's the view, I would take one approach is that because you guys have no duty to reproduce, and in fact, you actually propagandize the opposite, Christianity is superior because we outproduce you. And so would you agree, Craig, that at least on one point, you'd concede that Christianity is superior in reproducing children because a society, even a secular one, would need people, right?
Yeah, well, you've just strawman secular humanism again, whilst ignoring the questions I asked you, which is interesting. Secular humanism doesn't say, no, you shouldn't have children. That's just a complete strawman of secular humanism. We don't propagandize against having children. That's just a complete and utter strawman of secular humanism. Secular humanism allows for children to happen. I'm a secular humanist and I have 2 children. Now, is it true that secular humanist countries have a slightly lower birth rate than religious countries? Yes, absolutely. But does that mean that the country's population isn't increasing? No, absolutely not. Secular humanism doesn't say you shouldn't have children, and I'm honestly not sure where you've got that from, because it is one of the largest strawmans that you've brought up.
So yeah, secular humanists don't straight out say, no, don't have children. But they do promote contraception when having intercourse. They promote having intercourse out of wedlock. And they also talk about children like they're a burden. I mean, whenever they're arguing for terminating a pregnancy, they always talk about that baby like oh, it's just a clump of cells. Oh, it's a parasite. Like, they do everything they can to dehumanize the baby that is inside of the mother's womb. I mean, under a secular humanist society, would be more likely to see couples walking their dogs in strollers than they would children.
Asked what is better, right? What's better, right? I mentioned the duties. You totally dodged that and pretended I didn't answer you. You guys have no duties. There's no duties, right? The other thing is, I've heard you say, Craig, that you are fine with people being religious. You just don't want them to use force to force their beliefs on you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's wrong. You should never force your belief on another person.
Okay.
If you want to believe in Christianity, then I've got zero problem with that.
Okay.
However,
I'm not done. I'm not done.
I'm responding to it. If you,
I have a line of questioning, dude. Hold on a second. Just hold on.
Your question, I'm responding.
I know, but it's a simple question, right? You just say yes, right? So if you believe that.
Jim, hold on. I was in the middle of responding to what you were saying.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't believe? That's a yes or no question.
No, it's not yes or no.
You don't believe?
I don't get stuck into yes or no's. That's not how that works.
You don't believe that's?
I would not answer yes or no and leave out context.
All right, I just to be fair, there was reiteration, but I will let Jimbob ask the question again. There, let's try to wheel it in there, if you don't mind.
You don't? Yes or no? You don't believe that people should use their system and enforce their beliefs onto others, right?
Again, I'm not going to answer yes or no because that leaves out context. So
answer how you'd like.
Yeah, will you let me without interrupting? Will you? I'm just getting your permission to talk without you interrupting, Jimbob. Is that okay?
If we need to go into, like I say, time back and forth, so we can, but let's just give you the space to answer the question. That way there's no confusion. Let's try to keep it under 45 seconds if we can.
Yeah, like I said several times, if you want to be religious, cool. No worries. If you want to go to church and pray and worship God, no worries. But when you start coming to me, telling me that I'm wrong and I'm going to go to hell because I don't believe the things that you do, that's when I'm going to say, no, go away, stop being stupid. And if you then try and force that on me, then to protect myself, I will use force to go against that. That's what secular humanism would do. We would not allow you to force your beliefs on us because, you know, force include violence.
Okay, well, now do things like Drag Queen Story Hour, where you're forcing your beliefs onto young children and going up to them and telling them, you're a bigot because you don't think we should be pushing transgenderism onto children. What about things like that, Craig, in your secular humanist utopia?
Well, I said nothing about heaven or hell. I'm just wondering if you believe anyone should force anyone's beliefs on each other, and it sounds like it's just a clean no, right?
Again, there was a lot of context there you missed out.
Okay.
But
I just want to get the gist of it. Okay, so do you believe in human rights?
Absolutely, secular humanism is like founded on human rights, whereas Christianity is really not. Christianity is
Dude,
based on.
Holy shit! Hold on a second, dude. I'm
How-
asking
can you
you
let
simple.
me-
Dude,
Jimbo,
chill out.
please
I don't need 9 minutes for every question. I'm asking you yes or no because I'm leading you. So
Not gonna
yes,
answer yes or no.
you
I'm
believe in
gonna
yes or
respond
no.
to the thing you asked. Right,
No,
Jimbo.
I don't need all the extra story, dude. I'm just asking if you believe in human rights. The answer is yes. Okay, hold on a
I do want to
second.
let him ask his question there, Craig. So let's try to do that.
Hold on.
I do want to remind the
Hold on,
audience.
Craig. Calm down.
Just one
Don't
second,
panic.
fellas.
Don't panic.
I did send you an email. I see you're trying to fix the situation. So if you do need to take a second and maybe want to reset, I can pitch the live event and maybe we can get you back on camera.
I'm trying all these things, dude. Even
While they're fixing this, if you're enjoying this so far, smash that like button. If you think Made by Jim Bob is totally whooping Craig in this debate, and if you enjoy content like this, consider giving my channel a sub. You'll be helping me out a lot. Appreciate it. Let's continue.
Get them into a super chat, and we will definitely ask them whether you want to say good job, bad job, or like I say, help progress the conversation. Those are the most useful ones. So without further ado, let's get back into the conversation while I get our screens reclipped. So I'll hand it over to, I think Jim Bob was asking another leading question there. So let's continue on.
okay, are we back?
We sure are.
Okay, cool. So the reason I ask Craig if he believes in human rights, and that's leading after he said he doesn't believe in using force, enforcing his beliefs on people. I don't actually believe in human rights. So, Craig, would you say that you're forcing your beliefs on me if I don't believe in human rights?
No.
Why
You
not?
can not believe in human rights all you want. You're just not a secular humanist.
I didn't ask if it was a secular humanist. I asked if you don't believe in forcing your beliefs on people, and you believe that's a belief in a human right, and I don't, are you okay forcing the belief of human rights onto other people?
I'm not going to force the belief of human rights into you. If you don't want to believe in human rights, then that's your prerogative. It's a pretty pathetic and disgusting position to hold, but you want to hold that position, dude, you do you. I'm not going to stop you.
Okay, but if a society exists which has human rights, and I live in the society, and I say I don't believe in these human rights, it sounds like you're perfectly fine using force to force your beliefs of human rights onto me who doesn't believe in human rights.
No, as long as you follow the rules of that society,
That's rights.
you don't.
Those are rights. As long as you believe in human rights, yeah, of course, duh.
If you allow me to finish my sentence, Jim Bob, that'd be wonderful. I understand you have some impulse control issues, but you need to let me get more than 2 words out before you interrupt. That'd be wonderful. So you can believe whatever you want, right? But if you don't follow the rules of a society, then the consequences of not following those rules exist. So if you go and hurt and murder and rape people, then there's going to be problems for that. Just because you don't believe in human rights isn't going to be an issue within secular humanism unless you do something that is against other people.
I get you. But do you understand that when you say, if you don't follow the rules, what you're saying, the reason I asked about rights is because if the rules are informed by the precept of human rights, if I don't believe in your rules, you're basically saying you're going to use force. That means your belief in your rules, the construct of your rules, you're willing to use force, which is a contradiction from your position to say, believe what you want, just don't force your rules onto us. Well, I've demonstrated right now that you are willing to use force to enforce your rules if people don't agree with them.
Once again, Jim Bob, as I explained earlier quite succinctly, force is a last resort. if you are going to go against the rules and try and hurt other people or do things that are a problem within a secular society, as a last resort to protect that secular humanism society, force will be used. But that's not forcing their beliefs on you. That is the law of the land and you meeting the consequences for breaking those laws. You can believe what you want. That's not a problem or a crime.
So,
unlike Christianity, however, well, let me just point out there that within Christianity, thinking what you like is a crime. And it has been throughout history. It has resulted in people getting murdered. It has resulted in people getting stoned to death and more, and horrible things. Within Christianity, thinking what you want is literally a criminal act that can result in death. Secular humanism, you can think what you want as long as you don't try and harm other people. We're cool.
Okay, so the thing is as long as what you're saying is, translation for the audience, as long as you believe my beliefs and believe the beliefs that are enforced by the arm of government that enforces my beliefs, I'm totally fine with you, bro, which is not even different than a Christian view or even an Islam view or anything else, because Craig here is pretending that he has some sort of neutral ground to say, I just don't force my beliefs. Well, I've demonstrated pretty explicitly here, he does in fact enforce his beliefs. If I don't believe in the rules he believes in, he's willing to use force. If I don't believe in human rights, he's going to use force, right? That's pretty much it. I don't know any other way to produce the contradiction here.
Let me clarify. I said the exact opposite of that. You can believe what you want. I mean, maybe there's some problem with the hearing, I'm not sure, but I specifically said several times, you can believe what you want. You can not believe in human rights. You can literally believe what you want. And secular humanism isn't going to have a problem with that. A secular humanist society isn't going to have a problem with that. However,
just acting out my beliefs. Just acting out my beliefs. Right.
However, if you start to do things that are harming other people, if your beliefs cause other people harm as a last resort, a last resort, they will protect themselves. If your beliefs are, I'm just going to go and murder people because that's what I believe I should do, then you know what? We are going to stop that because that will harm people. And as a last resort, the last resort, we will use force to protect.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. So if you're going with harm reduction, if you, let's say hypothetically, people got a little wild with their sexual fetishes, which isn't foreign to secular systems.
Let's use coded language if that's where we're going.
Sorry. Okay, I don't know how to code it. Okay, so let's say someone, Grandma Mildred, with her consent, before death, signs a waiver saying anybody who's interested can toy around with my posthumous body for rent. The money will go to the family. The family agrees to it. From your secular position, because there's no harm, you couldn't stop a company from renting out a cadaver because no one's harmed and it's fully consent, right?
I don't think anyone would rent. I don't think any company.
I didn't ask if someone would do that. I said from your secular moral foundation. Don't God.
So Craig's spurging out because, and they always go to, well, nobody would do that. Well, how do you know though? Like, human beings are all capable of depraved things. So let's take out the company. Yeah, if grandma passes away and signs the waiver, and the money made from that could go to helping the family out. If it's benefiting the family, it's helping them pay their mortgage or their rent or whatever. Well, and everyone's consenting to it. Grandma did, the family, the people that are going to be committing the act consent to it. There's no harm being done. So what would be the issue in a secular humanist society? Craig's only defense is, well, that wouldn't happen. Well, why not? Who says that it couldn't?
Once again, Jimbob, you allowed me to get 3 words out before
I'm still talking.
Once again, you allowed me to get 3 words out before assuming what I was going to say and opening your mouth because you have impulse control issues. Now, Jimbob, no, there is no company that would rent out a cadaver.
Didn't ask if they would.
No, Jim, I'm going to keep repeating what I'm saying.
You're dodging. It's a dodge. Ryan, he's dodging the hypothetical.
Every time you interrupt me, I'm going to start.
Dodger in the chat. Dodger's in the chat.
Maybe I'm trying to get there, but you're not going to let me because, again, Jimbob, you have severe.
Hold on, let's not. All right, we're getting way too into the meta weeds here. So, Craig, I want to let you answer the question, and let's try to carry on.
I've been trying.
You want me to state the question again so you understand, so you can't dodge it?
I'm okay. I understand the question completely, and I'm going to respond. I'm going to respond to the question. You be quiet.
I need to know that you got the question.
Jimbob, I'm going to respond to the question. You be quiet. Now, there's no company that would rent out a cadaver. That's not something that is going to happen. Even if the person said, yeah, I would allow this to happen. You're coming up with hypotheticals, which are, you're literally using the fallacy of absurd.
People have sex with, do people do cadavers right now? Sorry.
Did I finish what I was saying, Jimbob? Did I finish my sentence? Or did you want to have some impulse control issues?
Said people wouldn't.
All right, let's see. Maybe we'll be getting there. So I guess the main point, of course, being that is the morality of the situation.
And no, I didn't say people wouldn't. I said no company would. Yeah. Again, Jimbo, you seem to have severe comprehension issues. It's like you want.
That's ad hoc. That's ad hoc. Let's get to the argument, right? That's the thing you're dodging.
And that's an observation.
No, you're using an attack of my character and my mental state to avoid the question. It's obfuscation.
I'm trying to answer the question, but you're
not answering the question.
Okay, all right. So, so the question would be, how is? All right, hold on, Craig. So the question being, how can you explain that this is immoral from your secular worldview?
Which is harm reduction, which means no one's being harmed. Hold on. Just to clarify. No one's being harmed. It's fully consent. And his answer is no one would do that. The problem is people have actually still to this day, right now, someone is diddling a cadaver. Okay, right now. Would they pay if it were legal to fiddle a cadaver based on Craig's moral position, which is secular humanism? It would be permissible. Whether or not someone would do it is not the question. What's the question is testing your logic that it's totally permissible. Bite the bullet, Craig. It's over.
Once again, a fallacy of ad absurdum. You're taking things to a ridiculous level of something that wouldn't happen.
It's not ridiculous. It happens, dude.
Oh, no, what, Jimbo? Once again, I got 3.5 words out.
All right, I don't want to have to.
Lying.
All right, hold on. I don't want to. All right, I do want to give chance for people to respond. I don't want to do muted rounds. You know that. But if it is a case, like you said, that you hold on. Like you say, you're now talking over me. But if it is a case that he's lying, like I say, just make a mental list or even a physical list, and we'll try to give a little space to, like I say, let either Craig raise his sword on his own or fall on it by himself. That's kind of how we want to do things. So go ahead there, Craig, if you would.
Yeah, it's just not something that would happen. No company would rent out a cadaver for people to have sex with, even if it was legal. It's just a disgusting thing that you have made up in your head, saying, well, secular humanism would allow this. Whether it would be allowed or not is irrelevant as to whether it would happen.
I got no, dude. Thank you for making my point. It's irrelevant whether or not it would happen. The question is,
once again,
let me answer.
I don't think there's any hope for Craig in this. I don't think there's no winning. Jimbob is asking very clear-cut questions, and Craig can't give any short, concise answers. He can't even give consistent answers because the secular humanist worldview is absolute nonsense. And every time we try to point out the problems with the secular humanist worldview, they spurg out and then they say, well, that wouldn't happen. Well, that would have happened. Well, says who? A lot of horrific things have happened in human history. So you can't just wave off these concerns or wave off these points and say, well, that wouldn't happen. Well, says who? It definitely doesn't say that in the secular Humanist Manifesto, where you believe just live and let live as long as you don't yuck my yum. If you want to see the rest of this debate, I have a link down in the description below. Great job by MadeByJimbob here against Craig. I did see another Craig debate recently that I'm going to share here on this channel. I'll give a little teaser. He doesn't fare too much. He doesn't fare much better. Craig, I don't think will ever learn. But what do you guys think about this clip? sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this. You'll be helping me out a lot. And smash that like button if you enjoyed this. If you like seeing secular humanists like Craig get absolutely demolished by base Christians like MadeByJimbob or Andrew Wilson, I have a whole playlist for you that you could check out and enjoy. And I have a whole bunch of other content on my channel with debates very similar like this that I think you'll enjoy.